Hello and welcome to this video on transactional writing for GCSE English language. So what even is transactional writing? Well, basically it's writing where you're trying to get a message across to somebody. You're writing for a purpose, maybe to inform, persuade, argue or advise. But think about Bart Simpson standing at the blackboard writing the same sentence over and over. It's funny, right? Well, maybe. But that's not good communication. He's just repeating himself. He's not explaining or persuading anyone of anything. In your writing, we don't really want repetition. We want to plan it out so that we're clear and structured and we actually get the message across to the person that we're trying to get that message to. Now, in the exam, they might ask you to write one of these: a letter, an article, a speech, a review, a report, anything like that. And each one of these ways of writing has its own little rules, like a letter needs addresses and a sign-off. An article probably needs a title and maybe some subheadings. A speech might use phrases like ladies and gentlemen. But don't panic. The key is knowing who you're writing to and why. And the main point is you're writing for a purpose and an audience, no matter what the form is. That's just detail. So with that in mind, the first thing, before you even start writing, before you even start planning, stop and ask yourself, what am I writing? What's the message and who am I writing to? If you're writing a letter to your head teacher, well, that's going to sound really different from an article in a teen magazine. Your tone, your style, it all depends on who you're writing for and why you're writing. So whenever you see the question, or as soon as you see the question, ask yourself three things straight away. What's my purpose? What's my audience? And what form am I writing in? Because absolutely everything depends on those three. If you're writing a letter to your head teacher, that is going to sound way more formal than writing an article for other teenagers. Yeah? Your tone, your language, your style. It all comes from these three. So you've got your purpose and your audience and the form, of course. So the second thing is, before you jump in and start writing, take 5 minutes at least to plan. And I know what you're thinking, I won't have time, but you will. In fact, it'll save you time if you do this, and it'll make your writing better. Write down 3 or 4 of the main points that you're going to make in supporting your key idea. Maybe 1 or 2 details or examples for each, some techniques, some specific vocabulary that you want to use. Now, this will stop you running out of things to say halfway through. More importantly, it'll stop you going off topic. Everything that you're writing needs to have purpose. Each paragraph has a job to do. Each sentence has a job to do. Yeah? And a quick plan can help keep that on track, and it really does make a huge difference. So our third tip, and here's a top tip. Start with a hook, something that grabs attention straight away. It could be a question, a bold statement, something surprising, something to engage the audience, something to attract their attention. Give them a reason to read your article or listen to your speech. And the best thing about this is that you don't have to make it up in the exam. Think of a few of these before you go in. Have them ready to go and pick one that suits your purpose on the day. Think about things like, where do you draw the line between passion and obsession? All right, that might work for some audiences. Heading into 2025, the average total UK household debt, excluding mortgages, was around £17,174. Yeah, okay, that doesn't engage me at all, but it might be engaging for somebody else. The day I found out that my grandmother had cancer was the best day of my life, as well as the worst. Gosh, now that might be engaging. Straight away, you've pulled the reader in. Now, where do you go from there? Well, you work it back to your point. But don't rush in. We'll come back to this, but 2 more important points before we do. The 4th thing to think about, and rule number 1, don't bore the examiner. This is something that students often forget. The examiner is a human being and they are reading loads of papers. If yours is dull, they're not going to be very impressed. You're not going to get your message across to them. Even if you're writing formally, you don't have to be boring. You can be clear, be lively, sound like you care about the thing that you're writing about. Show your personality while staying appropriate for the audience. Please, don't bore the examiner. Rule number 2 is a secret weapon. You can use your creative writing skills. Just because this is transactional writing doesn't mean it has to be dry. Please don't make it dry. But look at the articles and speeches in your anthology. Nearly all of them tell stories. They use imagery, they make things interesting. And you can do the same. Maybe add a little description, a mini anecdote, even a bit of dialogue if it helps you get your message across. This is all about being effective at getting your message across, not just ticking boxes. You can't just throw some techniques onto the page and hope that that's going to work. And this is not an essay. Please don't write an essay. Write an article, write a speech, write whatever they've asked you to write, but don't write an essay. So with those 2 little rules in mind, let's go back to those example hooks that I mentioned a couple of slides back. Where do we go after them? We've engaged the reader, but what happens next? Let's have a look at these. Where do you draw the line between passion and obsession? Well, this is a tailor-made hook for an article about priorities in life. Where do you go? Well, you might tell an anecdote about somebody who had a passion which turned into an obsession, or somebody that has a passion which never became an obsession and was a really positive thing in their life. Priorities. Heading into 2025, the average total UK household debt, excluding mortgages, was around £17,174. Yeah, okay. I still don't think it's very engaging, but it could also be a very good start of priorities. You could then go on to question why we have debt, why we buy so much junk that we don't need and we can't afford. And maybe work that back to an argument that actually we should be happy with walking around in nature for free instead of, I don't know, a new PlayStation or whatever it is that people spend their money on. And the day I found out that my grandmother had cancer was the best and the worst day of my life. Okay, so your fiance said yes, they'll marry you. And then you got the news about Gran. Well, this could also be used in an article about priorities in life. Wedding can be postponed, but yeah, time with Gran can't if she's got cancer. Well, not necessarily. Actually, I've worked all those points back to the same, all those hooks back to the same point. But almost any hook can lead to almost any point. It really depends on your style and your approach. Do you want to tug at the heartstrings to get your message across? Do you think that would work for the audience you're writing for? Or would you rather use facts? Do you think that's going to work for the audience that you're writing for there? Take a couple of seconds. How many more ways do you think you could think of to use these particular hooks? What prompts could they fit into one way or another? Okay, so our 5th tip and final. Some quick do's and don'ts. Please do plan first. Definitely do that. I've already mentioned it, but I want to re-emphasize that. The time spent planning is time very, very well spent. Do use paragraphs. Please use paragraphs and leave a blank line between them, an entire blank line. And don't simply leave a blank line at the end of every long sentence. Sentences and paragraphs are not the same. Some of your paragraphs will be longer. They'll have more sentences. Some of them will be shorter. There might be even single word paragraphs if you really want to highlight something, but separate them out and vary them and use them. Use them with purpose. Don't forget the conventions of whatever form you're writing about. There is a difference between a speech and an article. Make sure that you know them before you go in. That shouldn't be very difficult to do. And then stick to that. And please don't waffle. Get to your point. By waffling, I mean just using words as filler. This shows a lack of clarity and it shows a lack of purpose. Try to write everything deliberately and know what it is adding to your overall message. This is something that you should be doing in the planning stage. And much like waffle, don't repeat the same idea in different words. Not unless that's very clearly your plan and you're using repetition as a technique. A lot of students will just say the same thing kind of over and over again and hope that that's going to stick. Okay, it's marginally better than Bart writing on the blackboard, but not a great deal better. And so there we have it. That's it, done. Don't let transactional writing scare you. It's just writing with a clear message for a real audience and a real purpose. Plan what you want to say, start with a hook, and plan half a dozen of these before the exam. Do them today. Practice them over the next couple of weeks. Choose one once you've seen the question and then plan your approach for that audience. Communicate clearly using all the techniques you've learned in your class. Use your fanciest vocabulary and a judicious range of punctuation for effect. And you've absolutely got this. Good luck.